training, we will continue to go through the benefit cost codes table, which is one of our primary benefit setup validation tables, and explain how they correspond with the online enrollment process. The benefit cost codes table houses employee and employer benefit plan costing. It helps to define annual benefit costing by benefit code and coverage code. Additionally, to define a plan's costs for various coverage options, multiple cost records are required. Instead of creating a code in this validation table, a benefit cost record is unique based on the selected benefit code, selected coverage code, and selected profile if defined, as well as the effective date. Be sure to select the code first, because based on what you select here, the coverage code will populate with data based on your selection. The effective date identifies the begin date for the benefit costing. When reviewing this date, consider the pay period effective dates. To remove the cost record from service, like you would when you get your new costing each plan year, it should have a termination date based on the payroll periods. In some cases, a terminated benefit cost also has its active checkbox cleared to take that cost record out of service and make it unselectable. Benefit costs are set up based on the radio buttons in the top indicating either standard dollars, percentages, or rule costs. As you select the method by which you would like to calculate the costing, you will move down the table. What you select ultimately defines what and how we complete the rest of the fields. At the beginning, if you select dollars, this selected is calculating based on the dollar amounts entered in both the annual EE and ER cost fields and can stretch into the min and max areas as well. For example, a medical plan that has a simple employee only, employee plus spouse, employee plus child or children and family plan may use the costing in dollars. This allows us to enter the annual contribution to be divided among the number of payroll periods defined in the primary benefit code record. Furthermore, that calculation will then distribute to the correct payroll periods based on the deduction record, where we define what payrolls are affected with this specific deduction that should be processed. So for example, what you're looking at here is a medical PPO plan with the employee-only coverage with these standard annual EE and ER costing contributions. This will then be divided by the number of payrolls that are defined on the primary benefit code record for the medical PPO plan to let us know how much the actual deduction should be taken. It then looks at the deduction validation table to know which payrolls should be actually processed that way. This is very important when it comes to maybe a bi-weekly payroll that typically has 26 payrolls per year. If it should only come out of the first 2 payrolls that year or of each month, then that would change that calculation to 24 instead. And on the deduction codes table, we could indicate only to come out of the first 2 payrolls rather than potentially the third in those extra 2 months. Furthermore, the standard dollar amount can be used for benefit types like FSA and HSA, where they have clearly defined minimums and maximums, and the employee can choose between during the enrollment process. By placing a minimum of 0 and a max of, let's say, $3,500 in the max employee cost, the employee would have the option to select what they would like to contribute to their standard FSA or HSA. You can even take it a step further and allow the coverage to be selected in a defined increment. By checking the indicated coverage of increments below, you can go ahead and define what you would like those increments to be. This is more often seen when selecting something like a voluntary life plan where the calculated increments may be at $5,000 or $10,000. The next type is a calculation based on percentage. Instead of a standard dollar amount, the following fields are interpreted as percentages when this option is selected. They often are used for things like deferred comp, when an employer may offer an employee to select between 1 and, let's say, 85% of their income to be deducted for this specific benefit. Here, you can go ahead and place, once again, a percentage amount in the min and max employee costing, or employer costing if need be. The third option has to do with rule codes. The benefit rule costing includes costing set up upon some calculations set forth below by either salary or benefit amount. Benefit plan costs calculated by the cost rule code are calculated as a fraction of the salary or of the benefit amount multiplied by the cost rule amount. Costs will be allocated according to the percentages entered in both the employee and employer cost fields, essentially adding up to 100% between the two fields. For example, if you're entering an employer's paid group term life, 0 would be entered in the annual EE field, whereas 100% would be included in the ER field. Let's take a look at what's set up in this system. Furthermore, you would scroll down to indicate whether the calculation of the benefit amount should be calculated off a salary or a selected amount. If a selected amount is an option, you can define the standard or preset value of that benefit amount to be taken into account in the benefit amount field. Here, you would go ahead and select that amount. For example, if $15,000 is offered to everyone, this would be a standard definitive benefit amount. Or if there is a definitive choice, you will want to define the range in both the min and max benefit amount fields. It is recommended that even if the minimum is 0, to actually enter 0 in the minimum benefit amount. For example, if an employee could choose, or the system ranges between 0 and 100,000, this would be a defined option in the minimum and maximum amount. In the record we're looking at, we see that there is a minimum amount of $65,000 and a maximum amount of $300,000 for this specific plan. If it is a multiple of a salary, you will indicate by checking the box and selecting what multiple of that salary should be taken into account. You'll also select a rounding rule, whether it should be rounded to the nearest, next highest, or truncated to lower thousand, and when to look at the salary, whether it is in real time or a specific defined user date, or one of the other generalized effective look-back dates. Here, in this example, we do see that the group term life plan is taking into account the salary of the user, that it's 2 times that salary, it's being rounded up to the next highest thousand, and we should go ahead and look at the current annual salary year to date. If the user date is selected, please enter the user date that should be used to look back at this option. Furthermore, down below is where we define the actual costing calculation. A cost rule amount can be defined into the thousands, such as 1.123, or more rarely as a whole number. When the cost rule amount is used in the benefit calculation, it is a multiplier. This is where we would define the standard costs that are rated by age or years of service. You can opt to leave the rated by age selected with the choice of 0, not age or service related, if this is not going to be a factor. Many AD&D plans are calculated based on an amount, divided by a cost rule and multiplied by a rate factor. In this case, there is no age banding or years of service calculated that needs to be taken into account. Our cost rule code allows us to simply define the rate factor that should be taken into account. On the other hand, when costs are rated by years, this indicates that cost bands are needed. The option rated by age is selected when a plan costs different based on the employee, the spouse's, or the dependent's age. On the other hand, costing by years of service means the plan's costing differs based on the number of years of service and looks at a defined age service calculations field in order to refer to when the years of service should be taken into account. For more advanced cost banding, the indicator can be activated up above to go ahead and turn on a separate benefit cost bands table. For benefit costs based on dollars or rule codes, cost bands can be defined to list employee or employer costs by different years, gender, benefit salary, zip code, tobacco user status, benefit limit, and or a combination of these. The setup of the benefit cost bands requires access to the web role. So enterprise users who go through the FAT client or the thick client, what we call it, would actually have to come to the web to access the benefit cost bands table. There are also a few additional reportable fields that filter into our ESS and benefit detail records we skipped over above. In order to take a look at how those are built out, let's go back to one of our older records. Here, the deduction amount, the out-of-pocket amount, and monthly COBRA amount are fully able to be completed and conveyed to the employer and employee for reporting purposes. Additionally, if a benefit cost only applies to a specific benefit profile, select that benefit profile. This helps with ease of plan manipulation without having to set up separate benefit plans for different types of employees. For example, owners who may get 100% employer-paid benefits versus the rest of the company may have their specific benefit profile tied in this area to only give them their specialized costing. Otherwise, leave the benefit profile selection blank. As part of the benefit setup, the benefit code itself should be selected in the benefit profile new hire profile setup. This, on the other hand, is only available through the Enterprise Client Program, and you may need to talk to your system administrator or account manager about this. In later trainings, we will walk through the cost bands table, the enrollment process, the benefit detail records, and the overall benefit management.